Hey there, and welcome to the Elements of Gaming, in which I will break down and discuss just what makes a game so damn appealing, with a little touch of my own opinion. Whether it's nostalgia, a rush of adrenaline, or just plain simple relaxation, we'll take a look at the different aspects of gaming and break them down further to take a look inside one of the most popular hobbies in the world. The walls are falling apart. The floor is ripped out in places. There are things strewn about everywhere, and the lights are mostly out. You can hear something in the distance. Something that seems to be getting ever closer. It seems you won't be alone for much longer. This is atmosphere. The combined effort of lighting, music, sound, and pacing to make the player feel something. Urgency.
Evacuate immediately. Evacuate immediately. Evacuate immediately.
Fear.
The lithoform is dead, insect. Are you afraid? What is it you fear?
The end of your trivial existence. When
The history of my glory is written, your species shall only be a footnote to my magnificence. I am Shodan.
Melancholy.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Maria. I love you so much.
Much in the same way that movies do, but with video games, it's different. Magnified simply by the fact that the player is directly affected by what is happening in the game. Whether or not it actually works is dependent on the person playing, so it's kind of subjective, but it's fairly easy to tell what developers are going for when you play any given game. Now, this happens to be my favorite aspect of a game, aside from storytelling elements, so this might go into more detail than videos in the future, just as a warning. So, let's just get right into it. Atmosphere. At the start of the video, I gave a short descriptor for a horror game. In particular, the hit survival horror game, Alien Isolation, which I finally got around to playing before writing out this script, and man, did that game get my heart racing. Even without the use of music, the sounds and visuals alone were enough to get my blood pumping, especially when confronted with the lone xenomorph on the space station. A giant hulking monster that will absolutely maul you if you get caught. Does that remind you of anyone? See, the reason why I love games like this is because it goes that extra step to attack the player. Not their life bar, but their blood pressure. Well, the first two Resident Evil games do a really good job of conveying their settings, especially the remake. Jesus Christ, Lisa is horrifying. They don't instill a sort of familiarity with any particular monster. I suppose you could argue the case for William Birkin in Resident Evil 2, but his appearance changes with each encounter, so you're not really fighting the same monster each time, technically. This familiarity breeds the sense that the player is being hunted, adding even more tension to an already tense situation. Now, while the horror genre may be the most prominent in this kind of interaction with the player, it's certainly not the only one. Take, for instance, Dark Souls. The player is thrust into a bleak, dead, yes, dead, not dying, world and is given the task of setting out to, quote-unquote, rekindle the flame. Quite literally. As the player makes their journey, they come across the decaying ruins of once great castles, towns, and cities, all seeming to be falling apart brick by brick. Aside from Anne Orlando, but even that's just an illusion. The whole thing just gives off the sense that even if you do rekindle the flame, it's not gonna make much of a difference at all, thus making it a quest less about being the hero and more about it being literally your only purpose in life. That's kind of sad, honestly, to find out that your quote-unquote noble quest is literally just a temporary fix, no more effective than duct taping the pipes. Damn. That's deep. And finally, for this point, to beat a dead horse, let's take a look at the opening sequence to Metro 2033, a game that is set in a post-apocalyptic Moscow, where everyone is living underground in the subway network, hence the title. Right here at the start of the game, it's very upfront with the player about what's going on, and it's an interesting choice, one that leaves nothing to the imagination as to why everyone's living underground. After navigating a short corridor, the two characters quickly reach the surface, where we can immediately infer a few things. First, everything's fucked. That's why they're all geared out. Or up, as it were. And by this, of course, I mean that the surface world is a nightmarish hellscape. And secondly, that the air is toxic, because everything's fucked. This prompts the game to tell the player to put on their gas mask. The NPC that accompanies the player then informs them that something is coming, because he can hear it, and you probably could too if you were paying attention. Then suddenly, the player is set upon by a small pack of giant rats. After disposing of the creatures, the player proceeds outside, where they are met with a storm of strong winds, further reinforcing the fact that everything is fucked. This is when the game reinforces the point of why you shouldn't be going outside by surrounding the player's party with more giant rats. The next part of the game catalogs the main character's journey from a few days before. It is a dramatic shift in tone, but it helps to set the game's atmosphere and to prepare the player for what is to come. Now, my previous points aren't to say that good atmosphere has to have some kind of significant undertone or that it has to make you feel something. Sometimes it can be as simple as having gunfire and explosions off in the distance to help give the impression that the player is in a war zone. Call of Duty, Battlefield, and so on have done a pretty good job of making their games actually look like war zones, even if they sometimes stumble in making it feel that way. That's where my next point comes in, but with actual good examples. Now, we've already gone over what a game is like when there's a single overarching theme throughout the entire game. But what about when a game has multiple themes? We can go way back in time to see games making simple design choices to help reinforce their settings. For example, even without specifically naming them, I think it would be fair to say that the temples you need to traverse as adult Link in The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time would still be known by the same names that they're given by the game itself. The forest temple is in a forest, the fire temple is inside a volcano, and the water temple is at the bottom of a lake. Their placement in the world and the design of their interiors are easily reflected in the kinds of hazards they will encounter. Wolves, plants, and ghosts in the forest temple, flaming slugs, a couple of fire demons, and a literal dragon in the fire temple, and clams, urchins, and an amorphous blob thing for the water temple. Now, you could argue this theme kind of tapers off when it comes to the other two dungeons, since I imagine that without being named, they would have been called the Dark Temple and the Light Temple. But shadow is something that's generally used to convey the same message. Everything else is pretty much down pat for that one. As for the Spirit Temple, the whole theme of the dungeon doesn't really show itself to be quote-unquote spirit so much as light, though that could have been a consequence of time crunch and cut content, but the dungeon reflects this theme quite well through puzzles, if not through enemies like the others. This isn't the only example of such things, and I'd be here all day if I wanted to go over those, so we'll just leave that game as one of the better examples. Well, I hope this video has helped you to better understand video games and to give it a little more thought the next time you go around in any given game world. Stop, look, listen, and just take in your surroundings. You'll see what I mean. Let me know in the comments section below what your favorite atmospheric games or just game moments are, and let me know what you'd like to see from me next. Until next time, everyone, I'm Gaku. And I don't have a catchphrase.